Ja, gehen wir sein.
What is the compensation for disgrace? All depends upon the status of the one who disgraced and the one who was disgraced. As to impairment, we regard her as if she were a slave woman who was to be sold, how much she was worth, and how much she is worth. The fine is uniform with everyone, and every monetary obligation that is a fixed amount set by the Torah is uniform with everyone. Wherever there is a right of sale, there is no fine imposed, and wherever there is a fine imposed, there is no right of sale. A minor who is subject to the right of sale, and she is not entitled to a fine, a maiden who is entitled to a fine, and the right of sale does not apply to her. A mature girl is neither subject to the right of sale, nor is she entitled to a fine. If one declares, I have seduced so-and-so's daughter, he must pay for disgrace and impairment by his own admission, but he does not pay the fine. Likewise, if one declares, I have stolen and I have slaughtered, or I have sold, and he must pay the principal by his own admission, but he need not pay the double payment or the fourfold or fivefold payments. If one declares that my ox has killed so-and-so or so-and-so's ox, he must pay the due payments by his own admission. If one declares my ox has killed so-and-so's slave, however, he need not pay the fine by his own admission. This is the general rule. Whoever must pay more than he has damaged needs not pay by his own admission. Yeah.
Okay. Right, break Dalit. Narasha Nis Patisa. So here is a girl who was seduced. Boshta Ufgama Uknasa Shel Abiha. Then the money that goes to her father, the money for the boshes and the pagam and the knas that we just described yesterday, those all go to her father. But tsar betfusa, and if she was raped, then the tsar also goes to her father. Remember, this is talking about a girl who is not in her own domain. She's a nara or a child. Even according to Rabbi Meir, only if she's between 12 and 12 and a half, but according to Chachamim, even from age 3. Okay. Amda b'din ad shelo meisa'av. Now, what happens if she started the court case before her father died? Okay, harei hein shalav. Okay, so the money that she gets out of the court proceeding goes to the father, meisa'av. But if the father died during the court proceedings, harei hein shel achid, then it goes to his sons because they're his yorshim. However, if she only went to court after her father had died, so she was seduced or raped while her father was alive, but he died before she could go to Beis Din. Now she's a yasoma when she comes with the claim. Okay, so being that she's a yasoma, she gets the money herself. Amda b'din ad shelo bagra harei hen shel ab. Similarly, if she went to court before she was a Bulgaris, that's 12 and a half, right? The Bulgaris again has left her father's domain effectively. She's now an adult according to the halacha. Okay, if she went to court before she became an adult, harei hen shel ab. So then the money goes to her father. Meisa'av, if the father died, harei hein shalachim, and if the father died, then it goes to his yorshim, which is any brothers that she has. Okay. Lo hispika lamod b'din ad shebagra. If she didn't get to court before she turned 12 and a half, harei hein shalatzma. Then the money goes to her. So it's actually in her interest if she wants to get the money herself to delay the court proceedings until she comes of age. Okay, Rabbi Shimon Omer, im lo hispika ligos ad shemeisa'av, harei hen shelatzma. So Rabbi Shimon disagrees with the Tanna Kama and says that this whole discussion is hinging on the wrong thing. It's not hinging on when the judgment comes. It's hinging on when she collects. Okay, so it seems like the Tanna Kama is holding that once a court judgment has been issued, it's already been collected. Rabbi Shimon says no, it's got to come to Maaseh. They've actually got to hand over the money in order to count it. So which means that if her father died before she collected the money, then the money is going to go to her because she's the next in line claimant, not the next in line Yoresh. You hear the tension between the claimant and the heirs.
Right. Okay.
Also, the thing there's a halacha that the child has anything that the child makes or finds underage automatically belongs to the father, because the father's busy feeding them off his table and so naturally anything that they find is going to belong automatically to the father. Now that has lots of ramifications when it comes to for example, being zakeh someone in an Eruv or giving them a gift before Shabbos or whatever. So if you, for example, want to give somebody a gift before Shabbos that they can't, not like a bottle of wine, you don't have to, because that can be your bottle of wine that they're drinking at their table, that's fine. But if you want to give them a gift that is not, it's not something that they're going to be eating. Like if you want to come to somebody's Shabbos table and give them a book, and you don't want them to make a kinyan on the book on Shabbos, so you give it to somebody else, and somebody else to make a kinyan for them. Now, you can't give it to your underage child to make a kinyan for them. You also can't give it to your wife to make a kinyan for them, because she took a bill for it. But you can go to your next door neighbor and say, listen, would you make a kinyan on this for Fred, because I'm going to him on Shabbos and I want this to be his. Okay. Anyway, so back to our Mishnah. The girl, so now he has a situation where she found something, or she made something, and now before and then before the father can actually lay his hands on it, the father dies. Now who does it belong to? Says the Mishnah, not even a question. It belongs to the father, and therefore it falls down to the achim. Why? Because her hands are his hands. When the child makes something, or the child finds something, as she picks it up, it automatically belongs to the father. She made the kinyan on his behalf. She doesn't have her own hands in this respect. You hear that? So as soon as she makes the kinyan for herself, it's automatically going to the father. If the father now dies, it doesn't matter that she's holding on to it. It now belongs to her brothers.
Why does it go to the brothers instead of her after the father died?
Because the Yerusha goes to sons.
The sons, right? Okay, all right. So it says here, though, in the second paragraph, I guess, but it says if she went to trial before the father died, they belong to the father. If the father died, they belong to the brothers. If the father died before she went to trial, same sentence, they belong to her.
Yes.
I mean, there are no brothers.
Why is that? Because the money hasn't come to her yet. Right. In the case of the Metzia, she picked it up. It's Keilu, the father is picking it up through her. The court case hasn't happened yet. The money isn't hers yet until she actually she gets the judgment according to Tanakama, according to or until she actually takes the money according to Rabbi Shimon.
Okay. All right.
Okay, clear?
Clear. Okay.
Good. Okay, Mishna Bay, Samna Ares es Bito. Yeah, so here is a man who gives his daughter in marriage, and now so before, so this is Eresin, it's before the chuppah.
Right.
Okay, and now the husband decides he changed his mind, the Gersha, so he divorces her. So now the father says once again, Erisa, he gives her again an Eresin to another guy, and this Armala, and this poor guy dies. Okay, the second Kesubos is hers. Okay, why the second Kesubos is hers? Because at the time of her second marriage, the Kesubos Hashela, in both of these, in fact, both of these cases, I feel like Kesubos Hami Bal Harishon, right? Because it was Shenektiv of this man Shehasa Adain Bishos Abiha Shelahi Mishesia Pakar Rishos Av Aleha. So as soon as she marries the first guy, she has left her father's domain. the father never has a claim on her Kesuba. Unless, of course, he's her Yoresh, but that's under a different din. The Kesuba belongs to her no matter what happens. Okay? Hisia, the Gersha, Hisia, and his Armala. Oh, sorry, wait. I skipped a line. Rewind.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, the first case is he's Ma'ares, from Arisin. Right, when Arisin, she's still living in his house. If the first husband divorces her, she remarries again with Arisin, and the second husband dies, Kesuba Sashelo. Her Kesubas belong to her father because she has not left his Rishus. Because it's Arisin. Because it's Arisin, right? She never left his house.
But she's still living in his house because they haven't gone to Kupa.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Now, I'm just noticing over here that this seems to be a stereo to an earlier Mishnah. Let me finish reading what we're reading over here. It'll answer it, and I'm going to have to come back to it. Okay. Then the second case is Hisia, if she married, which means that she went into the other guy's domain. Okay. Right. And he divorced her. Hisia, if he gave her in marriage and she was widowed. By the way, they're not consecutive. These are cases where either she was widowed or divorced. It's not that there are two consecutive husbands.
Okay.
So that's what I've got. That's what I got wrong as well in the first interpretation. So if she was just married by Arisin, then that answers my kasha as well. So never mind. Okay. So if she was first married by Arisin and then she was divorced, she hasn't left her father's domain, and the father gets the Kesuba, whether it's divorced or widowed. If, however, she went to the chuppah and then she was married, widowed or divorced, then the Kesuba goes to her because she has now left her father's domain. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Harishona Shel Av. So Rabbi Yehuda says the first Kesuba that was written before the Nisuin, while she was still in her father's domain, belongs to her father, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, we go after the time of the writing of the Kesuba, not at the time of the divorce. Amrulo, the Chachamim said to him, that doesn't make sense. Misha Yisiya ein la'aviha rishusta. As soon as she's gone to the chuppah, the father has no dominion over her, and the halacha follows the Chachamim.
You said that it goes by the writing of the Kesuba, not by the chuppah.
That's Rabbi Yehuda.
Rabbi Yehuda, that wasn't you.
Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, and Chachamim will say, no. Once she's gone to the chuppah, she's no longer in her father's rishus. Now, the one that I saw as a possible contradiction is that we said that if a girl is, we're talking about a basula b'chaye, what's it? A yisona b'chaye aviha. That if she's we're talking about class right at the beginning of the last period. That the Narash and Nisarsa and Nisgarsha, the Mishna Gimel. Okay. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Omer en laknas, Rabbi Akiva Omer yesh laknas uknas alatzma. This is a girl who went by Arisin and was divorced. And now, knas alatzma, it doesn't go to her father because Rabbi Akiva is Dorish Asher Lo Arsa. Okay. Right? Because she is now she's called a Isama b'chaye abiha. Okay, that's interesting because Gimel is implying that if she is got an Arisin and then returns to and then is divorced, that she is now the father has no domain over her. So then our Mishnah over here that we just learned seems to be a contradiction to that still. Because our Mishnah is saying that in the beginning, if she has Arisin, then her father collects a Kesubah.
Erison and betrothed are interchangeable.
Yeah, that's
Or-
it. Erison is betrothed. That's right.
So here it says who was betrothed, and there it says Erison, and he gave her an inheritance who was. All right, yeah, it is. It's a contradiction.
Okay, I feel like I'm going to need to follow up on this one. Okay. Oh,
It
and
doesn't-
there's going to be other there are going to be other complications because the husband is writing the Kesubah. The husband's writing the Kesubah almanas that he's going to marry her, not that he's not writing the Kesubah that he's going to have to pay out when he never even got to live with her.
He doesn't. It doesn't say he gave her an Erison and she was widowed, or she was widowed. I think there would be a difference.
It doesn't make a difference whether she was divorced or widowed. That's really what it's saying.
This who belongs in. All right. Well, let me know tomorrow. I mean Sunday.
Right. The Kesubah, right? Because the Kesubah she only gets at the time of the Nisuin. Right. So that's the interesting question: is why should she get a Kesubah at all in the beginning of our Mishnah? Okay.
We never mentioned. I don't think we mentioned anywhere here, unless I'm sure we did. I'm thinking of the term about the Tanoim. We don't see.
Tanaim is nothing in the Mishnah. It's a much later custom that you make a deal to make sure that they follow through with the Chavah. But there's nothing in the Mishnah about Tanaim. Okay. So a woman converts and brings her daughter with her. The Zinasa. So now we're talking here about the Nara Morasa, the case of there's a special case in the Torah. The normal case of adultery is punishable by strangulation, but for the man and the woman, for the adulterer and the adulteress, they get chenek. But with the Nara Hamorasa, the girl who is betrothed and still living in her father's house, if she commits adultery, then her punishment is b'streifa, whereas the adulterer still gets chenek. It's one of the. I think it's like the only case where the punishment is different for the man and for the woman. Okay. Now the question is that this is only talking about a basula in her father's house. So now if it's a giores and her daughter converted with her, so this daughter then got married. It was given an erisin, and she committed adultery. Harez of chenek. So her punishment is chenek, just like any other adulteress. She doesn't. Why? Because she technically doesn't have a father.
No.
Okay, it's got to be it's because she's brought a disgrace on her father's house. This all happens in the petach habayit of her father's house. Ein la petach beis av. Now, what happens if she has a father, but the father's homeless? So there's no pesach beis av for her to be stoned at. So it's not srepa. It's skila.
Skilla.
She gets skila. Yes. Okay. The law me'asela. Okay. She doesn't. She has no pesach beis av, and she doesn't have me'asela. Furthermore, she also doesn't get me'asela, the 100 shekels fine if it turns out that her husband is lying and conspired to have her framed for the motzi shemra. Right? There's a penalty of 100 shekels. That's double the kesubah for the motzi shemra. Okay. Right. Okay. However, if a mother, even if a mother converted, if she was conceived as a Jewess, then she's 100% Jewish, and she's got all the dinim of a Nara Morasa. If she commits adultery, she is punishable by skila. En la lo pesach beis ha'av v'lo me'asela. However, she was conceived before her mother converted. but when she was born, but her mother converted with her in utero. So she's born a Jewess, therefore she gets therefore she's liable to skilla. But ein lo pesach beisav, it isn't done at the opening of her father's house. And she also is not entitled then to the 100 shekels if it's a moti shemra. But if it's both her conception and her birth were as a Jewess, harehi kabas Yisrael l'chol davar, so she's like any other Jewess. Yesh la'av ein la pesach beisav. What happens if she has a father but there's no pesach beisav? So now this is talking about the homeless guy. Okay, the father's homeless. Or yesh la pesach beisav ein la'av. Or she does have a father's house but her father has died. Right? Ein la'av. Hareza b'skila. It's she still gets the punishment of skila for adultery. Lo ne'emar pesach beisavia ela lemitzvah. It's just that the pesach beisavia is there if for the ideal way of doing it, which is that it should be by the the entrance of her father's house, because she brought this disgrace onto his house. Okay, but it's not like cave, in other words.
Right.
Okay. All right. Let's go on.
Go on. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm too late for the Avatzion minyan, so might as well.
that's 8:10. I think it is 8:10. I think.
They're now 8 o'clock, aren't they? I think the Friday minyan is at 8 o'clock.
Oh, all right. Dalet Aleph.
No.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's I'm sorry. It's tomorrow. I have to do. Okay, I'm sorry. Aleph Vav.
Yeah.
If one marries a woman and does not find any tokens of virginity, and she says, after you betrothed me, I was violated and your misfortune caused it. And the other one says, not so. It happened before I betrothed you, and my acquisition was made in error. Rabbi Gamil and Rabbi Eliezer say she is believed. Rabbi Yeshua says, however, she is not believed. Rather, it is presumed that she was a non-virgin before she was betrothed and that she misled him until she proves her claim. If she says, I was injured by the piece of wood, and he says, not so, but you were deflowered by a man, Rabbi Gamil and Rabbi Eliezer say she is believed. Rabbi Yeshua, however, says she is not believed. Rather, it is presumed that she was deflowered by a man until she proves her claim. And if they saw a woman talking with someone in the street, and they said to her, what is the nature of this man? And she replied, he is so-and-so, and he is a Kohen. Rabbi Gamil and Rabbi Eliezer say she is believed. Rabbi Yeshua says, however, she is not believed. Okay, that's it. Okay.
No, you didn't finish that Mishnah. There was still a few more words.
I turned the wrong page. Okay, all right. She is not believed. Okay, got stuff over here. Rather, it is presumed that she had been intimate with an Israelite or a mamzer until she proves her claim.
Okay. Yavamas Shishi Aleph.
Okay, Vav Aleph. One who cohabitates with his Yavama, whether mistakenly or wantonly, whether coerced or willingly, even if she was mistaken and she was wanted, or he was wanted and she was mistaken, or he was coerced but she was not, or she was coerced and he was not, whether the union was only partial or complete, he has acquired her, and there is no distinction between the forms of cohabitation. Similarly, if one cohabitates with any one of the arios forbidden in the Torah or those disqualified from marriage, for example, a widow to a Kohen Gadol, a divorcee, a kaluta to an ordinary Kohen, a mamzeres to an Nissanite to a Yisrael, or a daughter of Yisrael to a mamzer and Nissanite, he has disqualified her. There is no distinction between the forms of cohabitation. A widow who is married to a Kohen Gadol, or a divorcee, a kaluta who is married to an ordinary Kohen, even if they were only betrothed, they may not eat truma. Elazar and Reb Shimon, however, validated, and if they were widowed or divorced, it was from marriage, and they are disqualified. But if they're in trouble, they are qualified. One.
Yeah, we can carry on more. A couple minutes to this. The Biala is the past.
Sukkah, Zion. A person who had his head and most of his body inside the sukkah and is stable inside the house, Beit Shammai validates the sukkah, and Beis Hillel validates it. Said Beis Hillel to Beis Shammai, did it not happen that the elders of Beis Shammai and the elders of Beis Hillel went to visit Reb Yochanan ben Koronite and found him sitting with his head and most of his body inside the sukkah and his table within the house, and they said nothing to him. Beis Shammai replied to him, is that your proof? Actually, they said to him, is this how you have always conducted yourself? Then you have never in your life fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah. Women, slaves, and minors are exempt from the sukkah. A minor who does not need his mother is obligated to dwell in the sukkah. It once happened that the daughters-in-law of Shammai the elder gave birth and removed the plaster roof, and he removed the plaster roof and placed cock above the bed for the child. All the 7 days a man must make his sukkah, his permanent abode, and his house his temporary abode. If it rains when it is permissible to leave, when the porridge becomes spoiled. They illustrated this with a parable. To what is this comparable? To a slave who came to pour a cup for his master, and he poured the jug at his face.
I just realized that comparable and parable are related. I just have now.
Okay, Zion Aleph. If one eats truma willfully, he must repay its value, but does not pay the fifth. The prepayment is kulin, and if the priest wants to forego it, he may forego it. If a priest's daughter married a non-priest and afterwards ate truma, he repays the value, but does not pay the fifth, and her death is by burning. If she was married to any one of those ineligible, she must repay his value plus a fifth, and her death is by strangling. So says Reb Meir, but the comments say both repay its value, but do not pay the fifth, and their death is by burning. If one serves truma to his sons who are minors, or to his slaves, whether adults or minors, and eats truma from outside of Eretz Israel, or eats less than an olive's bulk of truma, he repays its value, but does not pay the fifth, and that which is given in payment is kulin. When the priest wishes to forego, he can forego. Okay. Idios. Olios first, right? Okay. Okay. Olios is test bait. If the hive is one handbreadth above the ground, then there is tuba below it inside the house or above the hive, everything becomes tummy except for that which is inside the hive. If the tuba is inside the hive, everything becomes tummy. If in one case this is supply where the hive is a utensil with windows. However, if it was broken and stuffed with straw, or if the window is covered, what is considered covered? When there is no window in the size of a handbreadth and an olive-sized piece of corpse is located underneath the hive, utensils directly below the olive piece size, as deep as one can go, become tummy. If the olive-sized piece is above the hive, utensils directly above the olive-sized piece go up to the sky to become tummy. The olive-sized piece is inside the house, only the house becomes tummy. And if the olive-sized piece is inside the hive, only that which is inside becomes tummy. If the hive is one handbreadth above the ground, and there is tumah below it or inside the house, whatever is below the hive or inside the house becomes tummy, but whatever inside or above the hive remains tahor. If the tumah is inside the hive, only that which is inside it becomes tummy. If the tumor is above the hive, utensils directly above it or up to the sky become tummy. Okay.
Adios.
Okay. Hey, Bob. Akava ben Mahalo testified concerning 4 matters. The sages said to him, Akava, rescind from your position on the 4 matters that you have said, and we will appoint you the based in for the Jewish people. Akava replied to them, it is preferable for me to be called a fool all my days and not become a wicked person for even one moment before the Amma present, that people should not say, Akavi retracted from his opinion for the sake of obtaining a position of authority. He, Akava, declared Tommy the deposited hair and yellow uterine blood, but the sages declare them tahor. He would permit benefiting from the hair of a blemished bikor, which fell out and was placed in a recess in the wall, and afterwards he slaughtered the animal, but the sages prohibited. He, Akava ben Mahalo, used to say, we do not give to drink neither to a female convert or a freed slave woman. But the comments say we do give them to drink. He said to him, an incident once took place in Yerushalayim in connection with Karkamis, a freed slave woman, and Shemaiah and Avitalan gave her sota water to drink. Akiva ben Mahalo replied to them, they gave her to drink similar, and then they can
excommunicate. The placebo. He said they just gave her a placebo because she wasn't really kind.
Okay. And then they excommunicated Akiva, and he died in a state of excommunication. And the court had his coffin stolen. But Yehuda said, heaven forbid that one say that Akiva was excommunicated, for the doors of the temple courtyard did not close on anyone from the entire people of Israel who was as great in wisdom and as fear of sin as Akiva ben Mahalal. Rather, it was that they excommunicated. Whether was it that they excommunicated? It was Eliezer ben Kanok who delighted the requirements of keeping one's hands tahor, and when he died, the court sent agents, and they placed a stone on his coffin, which teaches you that when anyone is excommunicated and dies in a state of excommunication, the court stones his coffin. At the time of Akiva's death, he said to his son, "My son, retract from the four matters that I used to say." He said to Akiva, his father, "But why did you not retract yourself?" And he said to his son, "I heard these rulings pronounced by the majority, and the sages heard them pronounced by the majority. Thus I adhered to my received tradition, and they adhered to their received tradition. But you heard one set of rulings pronounced by a single individual, myself, and a conflicting set of rulings pronounced by the majority. Therefore, it is preferable for you to abandon the words of the individual and grasp onto the hands of the majority." He said to Akaviah, "Father, intercede with your colleagues about me." And he answered him, "I will not intercede." He said to his father, "Perhaps you have found some cause in me." And he said, "No, it is your deeds that will bring you close to the sages, and your deeds that will distance you." One more.
Yeah.
Yehuda ben Baba testified concerning 5 things. The first, that we, the court, cause certain minors to refuse to continue the marriage, and he testified that we allow a woman to remarry based on one witness. And he testified that a rooster was once stoned in Yerushalayim for killing a person. And he testified that the 40-day-old wine was poured as a libation on the altar. And he testified about the morning time and that he may be offered until 4 hours of the day. Okay. I wanted to get to the shul.
I'm going to run now.
Go. Have a great time. I'll see you Sunday.